Hello, and thank you for joining today's session of the McGill Executive Institute's Level Up webinar series. My name is Eric Sain, and I'm the director of the Executive Institute. It's a pleasure to welcome you. Today's session is going to last about 1 hour and include time to answer your questions. Although you'll be on mute during the general session, we invite you to submit your questions by clicking on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Also, for better viewing, we recommend that you stop your video image by clicking on Stop Video to the lower left. Today's session is going to be recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. Today, we're very happy to welcome your webinar leader for today, Jackie Roberge. Jackie is a member of the McGill Executive Institute's faculty and a specialist in leadership development and bringing a values-based approach to organizations. Pamela Sorrenti, our Director of Public Programs, is going to be moderating today's session. She's a learning advisor and a specialist in developing impactful seminars. So thank you again for joining today's session, and let's get started. Over to you, Jackie.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric, for inviting me to be part of this series, and Pamela for co-facilitating today. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for showing up and showing interest in authentic leadership. And I'm just going to start with a quick overview of the agenda. So we're going to start with a mindful check-in just to get us centered and grounded. And then there are basically two big themes that we're going to be talking about today. So the first is authenticity in leadership and this notion of ambiguous times. And we're going to play with that a little bit and to come up with a new perspective around these ambiguous times. And there's also going to be a breakout session. So this is a time, it's going to be fun. There's a couple of questions that you're going to discuss in a group. And it's really time to deepen the learning and get some experiential learning. So that will be part of the session, as well as Eric mentioned, the chat and any kind of time you have a question, you can ask that. And then we're going to do a quick wrap up. Good, so let's get into the mindful check-in. So I'd invite you to put both feet on the floor, and I would also invite you to turn off any other distractions that you might have in front of you right now. So it might maybe your emails, a phone, and really give yourself the gift of being fully present for the next hour. So both feet on the floor, just sitting up tall, and I invite you to take a couple slow breaths. Maybe you've had a busy morning, maybe a certain amount of stress and adrenaline. So just take a few breaths and allow yourself to slow down. As we shift from a stress response to a relaxation response, we can actually absorb more and learn more. So it's a great thing to do at the beginning of a session like this. And then just turn your attention inward and feel what's happening in your physical body. Are you feeling fatigue? Are you feeling energy, stiffness, tension? Just be present with what's there. And then just bring your attention up to your thoughts. What's on your mind as you enter the session today? And then down to your heart, what emotions are present. So you might be feeling joy, sadness, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. Just be present with what's happening in terms of your emotions. And then just take another couple breaths. And I'd invite you to start with just sharing one word about a predominant either sensation in terms of physical, a thought, or a feeling. So one word in the chat.
Thanks, Jackie. It's also always nice to start a session like that. Everyone, so here's what's coming through. We have tension, optimistic, balanced, grateful, a lot of gratefuls here, relaxed, calm, a lot of calm and relaxed. There's tired, definitely some tired, happy, peaceful, in limbo. Let's see, coffee, always necessary. Preoccupied, overwhelmed. So a lot of different wired. That's a powerful one. Intrigued. Yeah, there's a lot of different feelings here.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing and kind of giving everybody a sense of how you're showing up. And when we practice mindfulness, the invitation is just to really be present with what's there without any judgment, just completely accepting what's present in the moment. So thank you for sharing on that. So what is authentic leadership? So I thought it would be good to start with a definition when we think of authentic. And so part of a definition is real or genuine. So that's pretty basic. I thought it was kind of interesting, not counterfeit, not false or copied. So when we think of having a mentor in terms of a leader, I think it's important, but we also don't want to try to be too much like somebody else, because we are our most powerful selves when we are true to ourselves. And so the other part of the definition is sharing one's true nature, one's true beliefs, deeply held beliefs, and really being true to oneself. And it's challenging sometimes to get in touch with these deeply held beliefs and what's really true for you, but that's the invitation as an authentic leader. So who are authentic leaders? So I'd invite you just to bring to mind right now somebody that you really view as an authentic leader. And also, it can be business, political, sports, a news person, just somebody that's really authentic. And then also think about what traits or values do they exhibit? Why do you think they are authentic? What makes you think they're authentic? And again, we're going to ask you to share in the chat.
So the first two that came up were Obama and Michelle Obama. Just interesting. Simon Sinek, Gandhi, the governor of my state, Angela Merkel, Philippe Alou, Seth Godin, Chrystia Freeland, Angela Merkel. That's nice. My track and field coach, that's wonderful. The Dalai Lama, Oprah. We have a lot of Angela Merkel. She's honest and down to earth. Bill Gates, the New Zealand Prime Minister, John Gibbons, Anderson Cooper, another Simon Sinek, Oprah, sorry, Novak, I'm gonna not pronounce that properly, Djokovic. Let's see, who else? Mandela, the New Zealand Prime Minister. Yeah, I think she's been on the news. Henry Mintzberg, Steve Jobs, my director, that's wonderful. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. So a lot of good examples here. Maybe maybe we can look into the why. Some more, Jackie? The traits and values. Mm-hmm. Transparent, tells the truth. Transparent, vulnerable, honest, open, human. Humbleness, transparent, vulnerable. So a lot of this vulnerability and the transparency, I think, is very big for people here. Accountability, optimistic, humble and connected, empathetic, trustable. So good words here.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for sharing. Those are great examples. Someone that comes to mind for me is John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods. And again, somebody that just comes across as really down to earth, genuine, not trying to impress anybody. So thank you for sharing. So knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And I thought this was a great quote when we talk about being our true self, this knowing oneself. And so I have a story I wanted to share. When I first taught my authentic leadership course at McGill, I showed up the first day, or I was preparing to show up the first day, and I thought, this is awesome. I really get to be my true self, authentic self. Nobody's going to judge me. I thought, yeah, I can take off the masks and just get rid of the titles of coach and teacher and consultant and the roles I play as a mother or teacher, and just show up as my true self. And then I thought, well, how am I going to show up? Who is it? How is that? What is my true self? And I thought it was so interesting that it baffled me a little bit of how I really wanted to show up when there were no limitations, no boundaries on showing up. So I ended up showing up and talking about my deeply held beliefs and really speaking from the heart. And so that was my way of showing up as my true self. So when we look at authentic leaders, I like this notion of personal mastery, because it really does start with looking inward. So knowing yourself, a great place to start is with core values. So core values, we always talk about them with organizations. You see them on the walls, but we don't talk as much about our own core values. So do we have personally, 5 to 7 values that we really live by? And what about those deeply held beliefs that I was talking about? How often do we tap into those and share those? And what's truly important to us, not what our teachers or our parents said was important, or moving up the corporate ladder. What is really important? What really matters to us? And are we focusing on that in our life? And in purpose, I help people find their purpose. And I often talk about 2 kind of paths to find your purpose. And one would be pursuing something that you're passionate about or good at, and sharing that with the world. It's something that you can't wait to share with the world. And then there's this other path that is looking at what breaks your heart, and what do you want to change about the world. And both those paths just bring a lot of passion to what you're doing. And so authentic leaders are in touch with their deeper purpose. The second level is caring for yourself. And I really emphasize this a lot, is you can't serve and care for others and uplift and inspire others if you're not at your best, if you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed. So it really starts with self-care. And I like to say self-care is the new healthcare. We really have to empower ourselves to take the actions every day in terms of diet, exercise, sleep, all these things to stay at our best. And it is not selfish. Definitely not. You are, as a leader, you are a role model in this area. So if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not giving yourself permission, then you're not helping your employees and your teams. I like to say that leaders that live well, lead well. And again, that mentorship role. And finally, I like to take a whole person approach when I do my coaching and training. So whole person, mind, body, spirit, but also looking at all the different categories of your life in terms of community and personal development and growth, all these things, and saying, how am I doing across the board? And actually, one of the handouts that we have for you is a whole person assessment that I've created. So 12 different categories where you can just take some time to turn inward and say, how am I doing across these different categories in my life? So those are 2 areas. A third, in terms of the personal mastery, is just being comfortable with yourself. So working from a place of confidence and not a place of fear. And this isn't a bold, showy confidence. It's just an inner confidence of knowing who you are and showing up, again, as genuine. The words that we heard in the chat: honest, ethical, able to make good moral choices, open to feedback, and humble. Again, when you're not trying to prove yourself, you can come across as a humble leader. Respect for others. And when you're comfortable with yourself, there's a sense of inner peace, and it comes out in a caring, calm manner when you're dealing with people. And you're more compassionate, but also that whole side of passionate and inspiring, because you're tuning into what's real for you. And the last part that I think is super important, and again, it came through in the chat, is this whole notion of vulnerability and really being courageous at that level. And I like this notion of vulnerability. So this is from Raj Sisodia, who's the co-author of Conscious Capitalism, which is a great leadership book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. So he talks about vulnerability as really a skill that we need to develop, just like any other skill. We need to practice it. So in my life, I've kind of had 2 parallel paths. Went to business school, went into marketing, consulting. So I've had this very business path that I've been on. And then I've had a more of a spiritual path. So I started meditating 25 years ago, and I became a yoga teacher and a mindfulness teacher. So I had these 2 parallel paths, and a couple of years ago, they kind of came together when I realized that business was ready to hear about mindfulness and meditation as a tool for helping their employees. And it was really, really exciting for me. So I started posting about it and holding workshops. And then one day I wrote a post for LinkedIn, and it was about enlightenment. So my daughter had shared a moment with me. She said she was just outside with nobody, in a quiet place with the sun shining down. And she said it was a very simple moment, but at the same time, it was extraordinary because she felt fully alive and joyful and blissful in this very ordinary moment. So I wrote this post and I called it A Glimpse of Enlightenment. And now colleagues of mine had been telling me, Jackie, it's okay to talk about meditation, but don't talk about enlightenment. That's not acceptable in business. So here I was, I wrote this post. Not only did I talk about enlightenment as a concept, but it was in the title of the post. And I talked about my daughter, so it was something personal. But I really felt moved. When I wrote it, I really felt moved. So I thought, no, I want to share it. I want to see if it can be of help to other people. So I probably waited a day or so, but I finally pressed post on LinkedIn. And then I kind of watched as people responded, and it was a post that got the most number of views of anything that I had done to date. So I kind of went, whew, okay. I got a certain level of comfort with that and feeling like I can show this side of myself, and it's okay in the business world. So you probably have heard Brené Brown talk about vulnerability and how it develops trust and openness. So as a leader, if you can be vulnerable, you're going to be able to deepen your connections with people. And it's so important to have that openness and that trust. And some of you mentioned Simon Sinek. So he talks about sharing of deeply held beliefs, which can be vulnerable, as a way of inspiring people. So again, vulnerability, very, very important concept and something that we need to practice. So back to personal mastery, and we're going to give you a chance to practice a little bit. So the first thing I talked about was those core values. So the invitation here is to think of 3 values that you want to lean into during this crisis. So I would invite you to think of aspirational values. So something that you're not necessarily fully living into right now, but you want to really work on. So here's just a list of some of the ones that had come up when I was describing authentic leadership. So I invite you to look over the list, but really turn inward and say, what values can I aspire to during this time to really contribute in a way that's personal to me? So you can just add that to the chat.
We have a few coming in, Jackie. So we have humility, humanism, and honesty, inspiring people, compassion, charity, patience, lean, give, listen, resilience, service, determination and openness, empathy, balance, grace and honesty. Definitely compassion is coming through a lot, and I think we all feel that these days. Value added, calm, visionary, patient, transparency, surrendering, that's an interesting one. Humble, balanced, respectful. Value added is coming up a lot. I think everyone wants to feel like they're adding some value to this situation into their lives. Sacrifice, innovation, trusting, listening, learning, acting, creativity, problem solving, making a difference, humanism, reflection. This can be a time of reflection for many, giving back. So a lot of really good things to lean into here.
Awesome. So thank you everybody for sharing those. I would recommend that you take a post-it after this session and just write those values out and put them on your computer screen or your desk, somewhere that you can see them, and just so that you can be reminded of them. So these values, they're what's important to you, and they influence our decisions and our behaviors. So great to keep them top of mind. Okay, so let's shift to this notion of ambiguous times. So again, I'd invite you in the chat, what synonyms come to mind when you think of ambiguous as a word?
uncertainty, vagueness, foggy,
Yes.
difficult, no control, stressful, new, undefined, unclear, uncertain, unknown. A lot of the unclear, uncertain, unknown is the overwhelming response. Gray, void, I like that. Challenging, lack of clarity, complex, confusion, blurred lines, partial knowns, dark. These are great, all great answers. Rules are blurred. Opportunity, paradigm shifts. A whack-a-mole, I like that. That's a good one. Ineffective, fluid is wonderful. Fragile, internal politics, that's interesting. No rules, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Those are a great variety of words. So again, turning to the definition, the basic one would be that whole notion of unclear, uncertain, maybe perplexing, the fogginess. So that came up a lot. What I loved is, and a couple of people mentioned this paradoxical paradigm shift. So the second part of the definition was double-edged, debatable, or misleading. And I thought, yeah, let's have some fun. Let's play with this notion of it not being necessarily uncertain, but maybe an opportunity. So I thought, let's just turn ambiguous on its head and just play with it. And why I love to do this is because I kind of see the world through rose-colored glasses. And I just naturally, when a difficult situation comes up, I like to do that paradigm shifting. So seeing the same thing, but from a different perspective, and how can we learn? How can we grow? How can we see this as an opportunity? So when I help people find their purpose, this is something that I help them do. I help them find what comes naturally and easily to them so that they can fully step into that ability and share it. And when you share that ability, it allows you to serve in a more meaningful way, in a more purposeful way. So we're going to be talking about this and exploring this with you in another minute. But right now, I'm just going to talk about this notion of a paradigm shift for this current situation. So the question is it time for a mindset shift around this COVID situation? So that, yes, we are in lockdown, but we're also slowing down. So we might be working a lot. I have definitely observed that. A lot of people are working a lot of hours, but we're not rushing out as much. We don't have as much social interaction and just outings to restaurants, gyms, etc. So we're staying inside. And I think that means that there's an opportunity to turn inward and start that self-reflection, looking at values, looking at beliefs. So taking this time to turn inward and get to know yourself better. And then this notion of social distancing, shifting to this virtual caring and supporting. So I have to say, in my family, there's 6 kids and my mother. We have gotten together more in the last month than we have in a whole year. And it's wonderful. So there's this new level of connection and caring that wasn't as present before. And that's a beautiful thing. And we see business shutdowns or slowdowns, yes, but we also see these businesses turning things around and developing new ways of doing business that would normally take a year, and they do it in a month. So it's very, very inspiring to see how many businesses have stepped up and really taken this to a new level in terms of transitioning and transforming and innovating. And yes, there's isolation, but what is really exciting to me is this notion that we're in it together. Everybody has to do their part, and just even nations have to come together. The whole world is involved in this. And it's an exciting time to see how, as a society, as a planet, as a society, we can work together to come through this stronger. And then there's complaining and worrying. There's a tendency to say, yeah, this is difficult. But when we get into that victim mode, it's disempowering. And so the invitation here is to empower yourself and say, how can I serve? And how can I uplift others as a leader in my family, in my community, and at work. So this is one level of kind of playing with the ambiguous and how can we see the opportunities that are there. A second level is in terms of the leadership traits and actions that I've been observing. And the exciting thing, yes, it is, I love that somebody used that word foggy. It is a foggy situation, but what I've been seeing is that the crisis is ushering in a new type of more conscious and connected leadership. And we're seeing that in so many different ways. So I just started playing with the word COVID again. So the first way I see leaders stepping up and being caring to a level that we haven't seen before. So going beyond just how are you doing as a professional, but how are you doing personally? How's your family? If you have an older parent, how are they? How are your kids coping? How are you doing with your exercise? Are you getting out every day? So this level of caring, it's like the boundaries have been blurred, and it's given leaders permission to be more caring at a deeper level. And my hope and desire is that this isn't going to, we'll never go back. Once this level of caring has been reached, there's a new closeness and a new openness that's going to stay. And again, being open to new ideas, open to ideas coming from all levels of the organization. I feel like there's much more opportunity for people to voice their opinions, give their ideas. And coming back to this notion of vulnerability, I think leaders are realizing that sometimes they don't have all the answers. And the important thing is not to have the answers, but to be able to ask good questions and get people together and connected and really leverage the collective intelligence. And then this level of integrity. So people's true character, the moral values come through in a crisis. So we're really seeing people stepping up and being transparent and honest. And it's really, really refreshing. And then the last thing is daring. I've seen companies like CCM, come out with these masks that are helping with protective gear. You've seen the vodka or the alcohol companies coming out with hand sanitizer. So they're really daring to go outside their business model. And this is so exciting for me because what they're doing is they're actually finding a higher purpose for their organization. And this is a big part of conscious capitalism. And it's like this COVID crisis is moving companies closer to being conscious capitalists. So a higher purpose that serves a greater good. And again, what I hope and really think is going to happen is that once companies realize how engaged employees are when they start feeling like they're contributing at this level, how much energy it is, how good it feels to contribute, I think that again is going to stick. It's going to be part of the new normal. Companies are going to be seeing and keeping a higher purpose and contributing to the greater good, and in addition to their business operations. So again, very exciting times as we see this new leadership coming through with the crisis. All right, so we're going to go back to this notion of how you can contribute, and we're going to do a little breakout room. So I have 2 discussion points that I'm going to help you play with. The first is just finishing this sentence. So those who know me well say that I'm good at. What do they naturally say that you're good at? And a second point is just brainstorming about taking what you're good at and how can you leverage that during this crisis. So I'm just going to give you a quick example from a CEO. So this is somebody that is a CEO of a company of a country, an international company, and I've coached her in the past. I just reached out recently and I wanted to see how she was doing, and she said she was doing well. Everybody transitioned well to working from home, and she said she was meeting with her executive team twice a day. So really having great contact and communication with them. And secondly, she was meeting with 30 randomly chosen people in her company once a week, having a roundtable, a virtual roundtable. And again, sharing, connecting, listening to their questions, answering their questions. And she actually used the word cheerleading. So obviously this is something that she is super good at. connecting, cheerleading, and she's leveraging it during this difficult time to keep people's morale up, to inspire them. So I thought that was just a great example of how you can take what you're good at and use it to help during the crisis. So some ideas to get you going. You might be good at listening. You might be good at tapping into people's emotions when they say, yeah, I'm good, Jackie. No, I'm fine. You know, there's something more. You might be good just at generating ideas, connecting with people at all levels of the organization, asking powerful questions. Or you might be good at just sensing or having a strong intuitive feeling about things. You might be optimistic or good at expressing gratitude or inspiring people. So if you're good at inspiring people, how can you get in front of people or write? You might be good at cooking. My daughter's been cooking and taking pictures and sharing healthy food online. You might be good at sewing or fundraising or building. So these are just examples, but I invite you to, in the chat room, just really play with some options and have your group help you out as well. So over to you, Pam.
Sure. So thanks, Jackie. I'll just go through the process of the exercise. There's already been a lot of communication in the chat here, so I'm sure you're going to have a great time in the rooms. So we are going to assign you a breakout room, and a pop-up will appear. You just enter the breakout room by clicking Enter Breakout Room. So if you're comfortable, please use your video, but if not, feel free to contribute even just with sound by speaking and unmuting yourself when you get into the breakout room. Each participant, depending on the size of the breakout room, it's hard to control how many people will be in each room, but each participant should have about 2 minutes to talk about, you know, their strengths and then brainstorm with the group about how you can leverage that. And so we'll also give you a 2-minute warning before coming back, and then we'll close the breakout rooms and it'll push you back into the regular session. So just a reminder, once you do return, to remute yourself and turn your video off. So with that, I'm going to create the breakout rooms. If there's any issues, there's also a call for help button, so someone will come in and see you. Enjoy, everyone. So welcome back, everybody.
Also going to invite people to share in the chat if you have anything that you want to share from your breakout session.
Okay, so let's see. Very nice experience. Great meeting Reagan and Jag. Nice. Wonderful experience. So this is all really positive. And you know, I assume, Jackie, people can go and do this exercise with family and friends and coworkers as well, right? So many things, connecting with people on a different level, making people go out of their comfort zone and getting people to do things to support us. We're not alone in all of this. More similarities than differences in our world. That's always a beautiful thing. Team 44, good listener, empathetic, problem solver, cheerleader. Love it. It was really nice to connect with people. Amazing how quickly we connected. So a lot of really nice connections, I think, happened throughout this exercise. Jackie, while we're here and before we just move forward, I'm gonna ask you to address a few questions that have come through. Sure. I have one here that's asking, what's the difference between values and beliefs?
That is a good question. The values, basically your beliefs kind of lead to your values. So your beliefs, your opinions, your views inform your values. So values are kind of like a step up, and they help you make, you know, decisions, and they serve as guides, whereas beliefs are something that you feel really strongly about that feed into the values.
Wonderful. We have a comment here from our participant that says, values are the why and the beliefs are the vision. I thought that was
nice.
Nicely put. There's also another one here that was, I find there's a fine line between confidence and bragginess, as well as vulnerability and weakness. What are some of the tips that you can offer on how to balance those?
So That's a great question. It's important to ask yourself where you're coming from when you're sharing something. If you're sharing something to make yourself look good, or if you're sharing something that has, a real meaningful purpose to inspire or to show somebody that you have empathy. So really looking at your motivation is a great place to start. And what was the other part of that? The weakness?
So it's vulnerability versus weakness.
Right. So it's important when you want to start playing with your ability to be vulnerable to just start with really baby steps and start with people that you're most comfortable with and see how that feels. But also it's important to be in touch with your own feelings first. So have a good level of emotional intelligence, because if you haven't kind of got a handle on your emotions and tapped into your feelings, then it might not be the right time to share. So once you have kind of explored your own feelings, you know where you're at, then it's you don't come from a place of weakness, but from a place of sharing what you know to be true.
So it goes back to the beginning from what you said, really knowing yourself. That's really the base of it all.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So that's good for now.
Excellent. Good. So this is basically my wrap-up slide. So just wanted to kind of review what we've gone through in terms of this notion, the notion of an authentic leader in these uncertain, ambiguous, yet exciting times. So invitation to really start with that notion of defining and living in alignment with your deeply held values. And this notion of alignment is so important, because often we can say, yes, family is one of my values. Balance is one of my values. Yet sometimes we get so driven by our business that we don't respect those values. So that the invitation here is to define your values and then just check in with yourself. Am I really living that alignment? And if not, how can I start to make adjustments? Another person I was coaching, he was a VP at a large pharmaceutical company, and he was talking about work-life balance, and he was encouraging his employees, yet he was showing up at 6 a.m. and leaving at 6 or 7 in the evening. And I thought, you're not practicing what you preach. And he started leaving at 4:30. And it was like really a great thing for him in terms of his alignment, and also giving his employees permission to take care and have balance in their life. So the second level is bringing honesty, respect, and a high level of ethical behavior. And again, in these difficult times, transparency is so important. And sharing with people the ethical, moral decisions that have to be made in these difficult times. Caring for yourselves so that you can serve others. So what is your plan in terms of all the different aspects of taking care of you, and are you putting that as a priority? And then stepping fully into your purpose and your passions, and how can you bring more of that into your work? That's what conscious capitalism is about, is making work more purposeful. And when you can bring some of your passions in, whether it's part of the standard business or as an add-on, it's really, really important. One person, a leader that I worked with, shared that she was passionate about helping a certain charity. And so she made that as part of what her team activities would do. So it's just an example of bringing more purpose and passion into your leadership. And of course, having that courage to stand up for what you believe in and really stay true to yourself and be that role model for others to be courageous as well. And then this notion of contributing to the greater good. As I said, I think that we've passed a point of no return, and we've seen what it can feel like and look like to contribute to the greater good. And I think that that's going to be part, as I said, of the new norm. So what I'm really excited about is in these difficult times is is this leadership that it's truly caring, deeper levels of connection, and just doing things that are daring, that are inspiring and uplifting those around us. So that's what I am seeing, and that's why I'm excited about these ambiguous times and what they're bringing to us and to leaders. So Pam, if we want to go on to more questions, I'm happy to.
Yeah, we do have, and we have quite a few questions that have come through, so that's great. So Jackie, you mentioned that you learned to share your true beliefs. This takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. Can you talk a bit about this, that process that you went through?
Yes, and it was an interesting, and again, this is a real process of introspection. I have many beliefs, but what the beliefs that I decided to share as part of this authentic leadership course were the beliefs related to what I was teaching. So it was, everybody has a purpose. Everybody has this unique difference to make in the world. And, that lights me up. And just sharing that with a group, knowing that everything, I believe that every opportunity, every challenge, every difficulty that we have is helping us get on our purpose path. It's helping us learn and grow. Mm-hmm. And so I just tried to really get in touch with my beliefs, but also make it relevant for what we were going to go through together as a journey. So I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. So here I have a question. What is the key to engaging both your values and your strength within authentic leadership?
What is the key?
Yeah.
I
don't think there's just one, right?
I think the basic is knowing them.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to be aware of your strengths, mm-hmm. and be able to own them. Again, it's great to be humble, but if you're not stepping into what you can do and how you can serve, then you're doing nobody, you're doing a disservice. So really know your strengths, step fully into them. And in terms of the values, the same thing, define them and then share them with your team, share them with people. And when you just start discussions and bring values into the equation, you get to a much deeper place. And I'll give you one example. I worked with this team, and one of the first things we did as a round circle was I said, what are you guys passionate about in terms of helping? What cause would you want to help in the world? And, there was people sharing anything from cancer to plastic water bottles. And it created a different level of connection with people because nobody had shared that level of kind of what was really personal touching for them. So that can be really helpful.
Wonderful. Okay, so Jackie, you mentioned that you help people find their purpose by leveraging what comes easy to them, what they're good at. But what happens when the person is very, very good at something that they do not like, enjoy, or find is not impactful? What do you think about the concepts of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable? Should you push those boundaries?
Well, I have to say that and I actually do this exercise with people sometimes. I say, if there's an envelope and in this envelope, your purpose was written out and I gave it to you, what would you be scared of? And some people will say, well, maybe I won't be good at it. Maybe I won't like it. And my response is, if you don't like it, if you're not excited by it, then it's not your purpose. Keep looking. So you may have a lot of skills and talents that you've developed over the years, but if it doesn't move you, if it doesn't energize you to think about contributing in that way, then keep looking because you haven't found that sweet spot yet.
Perfect. I think that's accurate. So this is a good one on balance, actually. So how do you behave, or what do you do when you work within an organization that expects that you have zero work left to carry over to the next day? So there's no emails left in your inbox. How do you find the time, or how do you balance taking care of yourself versus the obligations that your organization is putting pressure on you for?
Well, one thing I recommend to people is, for instance, your exercise. I always do, and my meditation, my exercise, it's the first thing in the morning. So once you are at work, you do become a bit caught up in the processes at work. But if you can have that balance before on your time, I find that very helpful. And also just you can explore with your boss and say, look, challenge a bit. Is this really necessary? Are we looking for perfection here, or are we looking to encourage people to have that kind of balance? And sometimes bringing those kind of questions up in a non-threatening way can actually help maybe the leader go to other leaders and maybe change those kind of policies. So I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't have them, fixed in stone. I'd say challenge them as well.
Right. Bring to light the situation that you're facing
Yeah.
at home, and hopefully they'll have some empathy and change things for the better.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one last one, but I think maybe what we can do, unless you have a quick off the top of your head, somebody asked for other books other than Conscious Capitalism that you would recommend on leadership. So maybe you have one or two that you...
Terms of Endearment come to mind. That's a great book about higher purpose in organizations and how powerful that is.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. We can also add these books to the post email that we'll send out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Leading from the Edge of Possibility is another good one.
So perfect. Wonderful. Okay, so I think that wraps it up for today. I want to thank everyone who joined to make this session a success. And I also want to thank Jackie for taking the time to remind us the importance of being true to ourselves and really allowing ourselves to be human, especially in this kind of situation and time. And I hope everyone is really walking away with some great insights into their strengths and that they can develop further over the next few weeks. So shortly, you'll be receiving an email from us with a recording of the session, as well as some of the important reflection tools and the whole person assessment that Jackie spoke of. There will also be a feedback survey, and we would really appreciate it if you could just take 2 minutes to fill that out. It really helps us refine our future sessions and gain some insights on topics that matter to you and what you want to see the next topics or what you would like to hear about. So again, thank you for attending this session in our Level Up webinar series, and I'd love to stay connected. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to send me additional emails or add me to your LinkedIn network. Definitely follow us on LinkedIn for more updates on these sessions, as well as our other courses. And for your information, our next session will be on Friday, May 1st, with Karen Diaz, who will be speaking on bias interrupters. So we really hope to see you there. I hope the weather is wonderful this weekend, wherever you are, and enjoy and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.